I'm here in the centre of Paris in front of the Sacré-Cœur, the Sacred Heart, the famous church in Montmartre. We're here because the dream of the 3-bed semi in the little back garden doesn't exactly loom large in the minds of most Parisians. We want to find out why. Specifically, we're going to talk to people living in the city and find out what kind of services and shared spaces you need to create if you want people to embrace apartment living. Very good. This is it?
This is the mansion. I think that pressure to own your own apartment is an immense pressure that the Irish put on themselves. That doesn't exist here. My name's Liv Monaghan and I came here almost 7 years ago to study a master's programme. I am living in this apartment for almost 3 years now and I am paying €680 a month. It is 24 metres squared. I suppose it would be the equivalent of living in somewhere like Merrion Square in Dublin. I think for me the biggest difference between the mentality in France and Ireland is the French, they're not so preoccupied with owning their apartment. There isn't this huge weight on bricks and mortar and having your own space here. There's a little bit more of an encouragement to invest in other things like in education and in culture. I don't have any intention to move back anytime soon because I really love my quality of life here. I mean, I am a stone's throw from the Sacré-Cœur and I don't think that I don't know if I could really swap that anytime soon.
Getting an apartment in Paris, you have to wait a long time. Sometimes it's actually harder to get an apartment than it is to get a job. I'm Vinny Carl, I run the pub here. I've been in Paris for 19 years now. You'll find in Paris that when you arrive, you'll see queues and queues standing outside in a building. Over here, a landlord would be very, very picky for letting somebody into their house because once somebody is in and renting, it's more or less becomes their house. And to get rid of them out of their house is very difficult for a landlord. And that's why when you will be renting over here, the landlord would take his time, want to know how long you're going to be there, have you got the money to stay in the house to pay your rent every month.
Guten Tag and welcome to Germany, Cologne to be precise. There are those at home who suggest the Germans have it sus when it comes to rent. People don't get price gouged, tenants don't get kicked out. There's none of that sort of thing. They've got it cracked. We're going to find out if that's the case. We're going to speak to some people living in the city. What people? Well, who better? The local GAA club, Cologne Celts, are training here in this park.
The typical stories you'd hear would be that people are well accustomed to the long queues leading up to the apartment. I think everyone has at least one story about that. My name is Stephen O'Rourke. I've been living in Germany since 2012. One aspect that's very different from back home in Ireland is that it's very difficult to evict somebody here in Germany. Usually if you have a good enough reason for why you can't be paying the rent, then you won't be dragged out of your apartment. But then if you look at it from the landlord's point of view, he's stuck with a problem tenant. So I'm not a politician, so I'm not going to go on about the rights and wrongs, but it's more evenly balanced, so nobody has the upper hand. What I would say is that I think Ireland and other countries could learn a lot from the Germans and the German systems.
So that's the sage words of wisdom from the local GAA club. But now we're going to go down and we're going to talk to some local experts and get a sense of how the rental model works.
Wir sind besonders stolz darauf, dass wir es erreicht haben in Köln, dass bei Neubaukonzepten 30% sozialer Wohnungsbau geschaffen werden muss. Ein weiterer wichtiger Punkt, den wir erreicht haben, ist, dass bei Neubauten nicht mehr einfach nur die Höhe des Geldes zählt, die wir als Stadt, wenn wir die Gelände verkaufen, bekommen, sondern dass derjenige bauen darf, der das beste Konzept hat. Also das heißt etwa für Kinder besser sorgt, für Menschen mit Behinderung besser sorgt, für Grünanlagen besser sorgt. Das ist ein ganz wichtiger Punkt der Verbesserung der Situation in Köln.
Welcome to Amsterdam. I'm here to find out about the Dutch social housing system. Housing agencies provide a huge amount of the stock here. We're beginning to rely more and more on them in Ireland. They have their own version of rebuilding Ireland here as well. It's called the Housing Agenda. What it means is that they've got a mix, or they want to mix in their housing stock. 20% market prices, they're your expensive homes. 40% controlled prices, your cheap houses, to get people off social housing waiting lists. And this one, really important, 40% affordable. In other words, they want to ensure that middle income earners can afford to live in the cities. So let's find out how it works.
You're here in front of Het Schip, the ship, a beautiful example of beautiful masonry, beautiful aesthetics, but very important, it's social housing and it's going to remain social housing. We're very proud of the ship, not only for its beauty, but also for what it symbolizes. It symbolizes social housing in the Netherlands, it symbolizes social housing in Amsterdam. About 50% of the housing in Amsterdam is social housing. It makes sure that Amsterdam is still a city where all sorts of people can live, poor and rich. If you take, for example, this area where the housing prices are booming enormously, we are still able to maintain social housing in this part of the city. The amount of housing aimed at the middle range is growing because that's really a part where there's a lot of need of it. We believe very much that areas can be successful when there's a lot of variation. When there's not only very rich people or only very poor people. We think that it influences each other in a positive way. People don't feel like they're living in a ghetto. Well, what we're very proud of in the Netherlands is the standard of living. Of course, this is a very prime example because it has just been renovated. But if you look at the average social housing house in Amsterdam or in the Netherlands, you'll see it's a really good quality. On average, rooms are good, heatings are good, the roofs are good. It's really a place where you can live and where you can make sure that you can make a living. And we think that's important because to be successful in life or to grow or to have your kids to study, you really need a good roof above your head.
We help actually all the people who are either lonely, who don't have any money, who are living on the streets. That's the people we help. I feel that the government and the Amsterdam municipality, they do quite good in supporting us to tackle homelessness. They're not just supporting us with money, but they're really interested in us. They come and visit the centers. One thing that's a very good thing, people who have social welfare, they're not allowed to rent out a room for people who are homeless because they will be stopped in their social welfare if they get rent from somebody. We made a project under the roof, it's called. We help people who have social welfare to rent out a room. And we support them and we keep an eye on it. And so that's one of the ways we try to end homelessness.
It's been really interesting looking at the different ways these different cities, Paris, Cologne and Amsterdam, have dealt with housing issues. But how much of it can we apply to Ireland? I'm not sure. I think my key takeaway is beware anyone who promises the silver bullet solution, who says, you know, they've got it sussed over there, let's just copy what they do. You know, there's pros and cons everywhere I went. Paris, they've got this great culture of apartment living, but it can be hard to get an apartment. And the same in Cologne, there's great rent controls. If you're somewhere in situ as a tenant, it's very hard to get rid of you. But it can be very hard then to find a place to live, particularly for young people. And even here in Amsterdam, they try to work in this great mix of social and affordable housing along with expensive homes, but the laws of supply and demand trump all that, and we still met people who are homeless. To be honest, I think having visited these three countries and knowing the problems that we have at home, the answer isn't to ape any one of them. It's to do a bit of cherry picking, a bit of pick and mix, you know. Look at what works here, what works there, take a bit of that, add a little bit of that, sprinkle of some of this, and maybe then you can come up with an Irish solution to an Irish problem.